Alright, so in this video I'm going to show you all how to do the cross-validation process that's necessary when you use any kind of statistical regression. And again, we're testing for overfitting here. So I'll just use the same exact example I did in class. So really the first thing to look at is, what are your predictors? So I think in class we used, this is the criterions, this is visits to healthcare professionals. And then we have these three as predictors, so stressful life events, mental health, and then physical health. So these are the three predictors we'll enter into stepwise or forward or backward regression, and they're all predicting this. But before we do that, what we really need to do is select a random sample of data to build the model, and then we're going to cross-validate that against the other 20% that's left out. So we have to go to Data, select cases, and then we're going to random sample of cases, sample, and then we're going to select 80%. You can do however many. 80 is a pretty good number though, or a pretty good proportion. So click continue, okay, and then what it's done is select a certain number of those cases, and it's random, so the ones that are crossed out are not selected. Next, what we need to do is create a new variable. We'll call this sample, and then we'll give it two different values. So 0 is the 20% sample, and then 1 is the 80% sample. And all we have to do after that is simply copy this filter variable, which is temporary. We're going to copy that over to this. Now, if you'll remember from class, we have this weird case down here. I'm not sure what's going on with that, so I'll just delete that. Okay, now we've got filter taken care of. We are going to cut that, remove it, and so we're at sample. Now the next thing to do is just to make sure that a certain sample of your data is selected. So you go back to select cases. We're going to go to if condition is satisfied. Click on if, select sample equal to 1. So again, this is just making sure that the 80% sample is selected and not the 20%. So click OK, and then we should be good. Now we're ready to build our model. So we've got to analyze, regression, linear, visits to health professionals is going to be our criterion. Then we're going to have these three as our predictors. So we're going to use stepwise this time, and we'll be good with that. We don't need to really select anything up here, and then we'll click OK. Alright, so you can see exactly what the results are. Again, they're the same that we went over in class. You've got two predictors in the final model, and then you've got everything you need right here to build your equation and then create predicted values. So the thing to do next is go back to data, select cases, and then select all cases, or you can just click reset and it changes everything back. Click OK, and so now we have all of the data that we're looking at once. You can see over here nothing's crossed out. Right, we can delete this filter variable again. We don't really need it at the moment. Okay, so the next thing to do is create the predicted scores. So we're going to go transform, compute, and then we're going to use predicted. And all we have to do next is input the appropriate values here. So we're going to use the y-intercept first, which is negative 3.978, plus, we'll say 1.769, which is this right here, the regression coefficient for physical health symptoms. We have to multiply that by physical health symptoms. So then close the parentheses, then we're going to add the last predictor in the stressful life events, so it's 0.016. Again, times stressful life events. So we don't need mental health symptoms here because it's still excluded from the analysis. So excluded variables, mental health symptoms was never input into the model, so it's just not going to be entered into our equation here. So then we can create predicted values for all of the cases, the 20% and the 80% sample, even though the model was built, this model right here was built using only the 80% sample. So we're going to click OK. Now we're back here, we've got the predicted values created. So the only thing to do next is split the data. So we're going to go to Data, Split File, and we're going to compare groups. What we're going to compare are the samples here. So this is going to compare our 20% and 80% sample. We click OK. Now what we're going to analyze, we're going to go to Correlate and Bivariate, and we're going to compare our predicted values with the actual criterion. So you want a high degree of overlap here. You want a pretty large positive correlation coefficient. And then we're going to see if that's about the same for the 20% sample and the 80% sample. So we'll click OK. And as we showed in class, this correlation coefficient is 0.458 for the actual sample it was created from, and it's a little bit larger for the 20% sample. So what this suggests, it's kind of an odd thing that occurs here, but what it does suggest is that there's not overfitting. So if we had 0.458 here and like 0.258 or something right here, then that would probably suggest overfitting. So what you would want to do is collect a larger sample, preferably from a more generalized group. So you want different participants, something that's more generalizable. So hopefully this has been helpful, and we can obviously talk about it in class if you have any questions.